Okay, so this was supposed to be a Halloween video, but seeing as it is now far past Halloween, I guess it's just gonna have to be classified as a late fall video. I find this seems to happen every year where I come up with so many different ideas for things to make that by the time I get around to it all, it's like far past whatever holiday I was aiming for. And then you end up with things like Christmas trick-or-treating or decorating the Hallow tree. Yeah, those were weird. Anyways, let's just pretend it's still October. Yeah. Okay. So, for this year, going into October, my goal was to make things for Halloween. However, this time, unlike previous years, I wanted the things to be more usable outside of only Halloween. Like take this guy from last year, this cat witch character with very hot hands. It's a good character design and all, but the problem is you cannot use him anywhere else. Like you couldn't put this guy on a beach in summer and expect him to fit in. He's exclusively tied to Halloween. And that's a problem because in terms of general world building, he's very limiting. That's why this time I wanted to make guys that, while they could fit with a Halloween vibe, are not specifically tied to it. And so to begin with, I remember I actually had some things written down in my idea list from last year. So I went looking through it, and well, it turns out my idea list is a bit big now. I think it might be around over 10,000 words. So I unfortunately was not able to find those ideas. But luckily I was able to remember generally what they were. But yeah, I really need to start sorting this thing a lot better. But anyways, let's get on with the first character design. So to start with, the first thing I began playing around with was the idea of like a scarecrow. I was thinking of taking him in a weirder, more unique direction at first, like making him a commander of crows, where he's like has a bunch of crows he controls. Or maybe just some creature that's camouflaged to appear like a scarecrow. But in the end, I went for a lot simpler approach. I basically just made him a normal scarecrow, but with animal features. As I figured that was kind of unique, as you really don't ever see animal scarecrows. Which I guess makes sense, as then crows wouldn't be scared of it. But in this world, where there's no humans, an animal scarecrow would make the most sense. Now, moving on to the thing that I actually had the most trouble with this design was actually just what sort of scarecrow he should be. Because I don't know if you ever really looked at a scarecrow closely before, but like, there really isn't just a single type of scarecrow. At least not exactly. Like, scarecrows can really vary between all sorts of things. Like, some are more complex and are like giant dolls with their limbs and stuff being sewn together. But then of course they can also just be clothes wrapped around the pole in the ground. And that can be considered a scarecrow too. And unlike something like a car, where you can look at it and get a pretty clear idea of all the different parts and where things generally are, with a scarecrow, literally every single aspect about them can change. So I had a hard time just figuring out what direction to take this guy in, like what clothes or style or even materials to use. So I spent a good few days at first just going back to this piece and trying different things. Like in one version, I think I had him where he was going to be wearing overalls, because that's something a lot of scarecrows wear. But then I thought it felt too goofy, so I went for a more raggedy approach, with most of his body really being more sewn together, closer to the doll design. I don't really know what sort of vibe you'd say this guy is, but for me, I was kind of seeing him as right between eerie and friendly. Like the sort of feeling where he seems friendly enough in the day, but then at night if you stumbled across him just standing motionless in a dark field, you might be a little unnerved. And to add on to that idea, I also wasn't sure if this guy should be like an actual normal inanimate scarecrow, or if he should be more alive. Like, does he actually move around, or is he just a sack of hay? So one little detail I did, which I think is an important detail, is that unlike most scarecrows, he doesn't actually have the pole going through his body, but instead he's just resting on it. As if maybe he could just drop down at any time and walk away. Doesn't mean for sure he's alive, but it's a fun little detail. Also, fun fact about scarecrows, apparently in some places they're also called haymen, which sounds reasonable enough, but then you also got ones like tatty bogle, boobwa, mermit, and gallybagger, which I don't know about you, but if someone called me a gallybagger mermaid, I'd be insulted. Moving on to the second design. For this one, I decided to go with the idea of a ghost. But of course, since we're trying to keep these from being too Halloweeny, instead of going with a typical ghost or dead thing, I decided to go with a creature that's just wearing a sheet. I really don't know what this thing's purpose is, if he's like using the sheet because he thinks it's a disguise or camouflage, maybe he thinks he just looks scary in it, I really don't know. I thought about taking him in a more undead direction at first, like where you could see through his ribs, or maybe there'd be like a hole through him, you could see his bones. But I found that as the design went on, he just started to become cuter until really the only undead thing about him was that his tail is still very barren and definitely looks a lot more like some sort of old twisted root or twig. Actually, I think unconsciously I might have been basing the tail on a wizard staff. I wasn't intentionally doing it, but it's just one of those things where it's like you look back on it and you're like, yeah, I think I must have had a subconscious image of a wizard staff pulled up for reference. And not to get distracted from the main design process here, but that's something I find interesting, which is like how everything you draw has to be inspired from somewhere. Like if you just grew up in a completely blank, empty room, what would you be able to create? I don't feel like it'd really be much. Like I feel like you just do scribbles of nonsense. You really need to take in stuff to be able to create things. And even though it doesn't feel like it while you're drawing, I imagine every single tiny detail you do must be based off of something you've at one point seen. You are what you eat, as they say. I think that especially applies to art. Like, I don't really have much of an interest in things that are too violent or gory. And I mean, you can probably tell that pretty easily from my art. I like things that are colorful and at least fantastical in some sort of way. So because of that, I imagine my head is jam-packed full of colorful nonsense. And that leads me to create a lot of colorful and cute things. Like, if I was really into watching videos about, like, torture chambers, I probably wouldn't be out here drawing meat crystals. Anyways, back to the ghost dog. For names, I decided to end up calling this guy Muo, which I kind of forget the reason for that now. I think I just liked it, but later I then looked it up and I realized that Muo is actually like the name of this brain disease dogs can have, which I was not aware of at the time, and I don't know if I would have called him that if I knew, but well, I guess it makes him a bit more unsettling, which kind of fits the character. So we have the ghost creature, the scarecrow, and now I guess for this next one, I kind of combined those two together because I decided to do another creature one, but now with the theme of corn. I always like when designing creatures to think about like how they would have evolved to camouflage in their environment. And that's exactly what I did with this character. Like, what if there was some dog creature that evolved to eat corn? Well, I imagine they'd spend a lot of time lurking in cornfields, and so their design and colors and fur would also change to reflect that. Like the top part of them that sticks up the most, like their ears and things, would likely change to look a lot like corn, while maybe the bottom parts would turn more black to camouflage in the shadows. I think doing it this way not only helps to come up with ideas for the character's design, but it also helps in another big factor of character design, which is just using recognizable objects and shapes. I've talked about this before, I even made an entire video about it, but basically, the more original something becomes, the more alien it also becomes. And if you go too far with it, I find it actually loses any meaning to it because you have nothing to compare it to. Like, for example, if you saw like a pink alien tentacle monster with 7 eyes, it wouldn't really mean much to you if you saw it get run over by a bus. Meanwhile, if it was like a cute puppy that got run over, it'd mean a lot more to you. And so that's why when I make things, I always try to keep them very recognizable, kind of just like parts, but they're put in a new way. Like for this character, it's literally just corn plus a dog mixed together. But because both those things are still easily recognizable for what they are, but they're put in a new way, it adds interest, but it's still appealing to people and still has meaning. It also kind of goes back to what I was saying before about keeping your head full of nice things. I can only imagine the combinations I would make if I was into torture chambers and barber shops. It'd be disgusting. Also, for the name, for this guy, I decided to call him Cornicane. Again, just a mix between corn and canine. And although I haven't checked, I'm pretty sure that that's not the name of any brain diseases. Alright, but now after 2 beasts in a row, I figured I should do another character one. And so for this guy, I was thinking, what could be a thing that would fit into Halloween, but on its own has no relation to it? And so I started playing around with the idea of like a thief, or some guy that can go in the night and steal things. Kind of like Halloween, but not specifically Halloween. I was picturing him as having some sort of mask on, and I was kind of going to make it a pumpkin mask at first, but that felt just way too specific to Halloween. So in the end, I changed it to a leaf. And although his colors are getting dangerously close to being Halloween colors, which is something I wanted to avoid, I do feel like in his case, it does kind of work though, because if this guy did have to appear in like the summer or winter, I could just imagine him changing his leaf. For winter, it could be like a dark evergreen leaf, and for summer, it could just be a bright green, you know? And even his little backpack, his little candy corn backpack, that could also just be changed for something else. He could go find a gingerbread backpack for Christmas, for example. Really, his core colors are just black, and he is just a cat. So at the end of the day, even though he does look pretty Halloweenish, I figured he could just change his outfit whenever he needs to, and it wouldn't change his character design too much or anything. So then, at this point, I believe it was getting dangerously close to Halloween time. So instead of making any more characters, I decided to do a few more pieces, but these ones would be full scenery ones. I don't have as much to say about these ones, but since you're still here, I'll show you them quickly anyways. So something I decided to do a little differently this year was to actually do a little collection where Pumpernickel would appear in each of them, like a little series. And so for this first one, I decided to go with a cookie shop, with Pumpernickel in the background stealing a few biscuits. Another reason I went with the cookie shop is because, I don't know why, but for some reason I seem to have this tradition where I'll do a picture around Halloween with cookies in it. And at this point, I'm just associating Halloween with cookies, so yeah, it's a tradition I gotta keep at this point. And then after that, we have Pumpernickel vandalizing a bakery. Might have gotten a little distracted with drawing all the cakes and baked goods of this one. They were supposed to be just a little detail, but yeah, as you can see, there's quite a lot of them. And honestly, if I had more than a week left, I probably would have added even more. But I mean, can you blame me? Cakes and stuff is just like such a fun thing to draw. I don't know if I'll continue this idea next year with the whole Pumpernickel breaking into places, but I'd say there's a decent chance I will, if only because I get a chance to draw more sugary things. I mean, I still have an entire list of ideas I wrote down, like caramel apples, Halloween-themed cupcakes and cakes, chocolate bars, candy, lollipops, candy corn. I didn't even do candy corn this year. Gummy worms, various different types of hard candies, pies, caramel squares. Yeah, I think there's a decent chance I'm going to continue this next year. And then finally, for this last piece, I started to do this kind of update on a painting I did last year, which was of this candy hoarding dragon scene. And once again, the poor guy is getting his candy stolen. Normally with dragons, I think they're supposed to be pretty good at defending their hoard, but yeah, this guy's kind of a pushover. I mean, he is hoarding candy after all, so he may not be the smartest of the bunch. And after that, to close out the holiday, I decided to do one last Halloween one, and I did this little scene of some Hallows Eve trick-or-treaters. Now because it was last minute, I didn't even know if I'd get it done or not, so I didn't record the process at all, but I'll show it to you anyways. And unfortunately, that's it for Halloween. I really like doing Halloween artwork, yet I always seem to start working on it way too late, and then by the time I really get into it, it's already over. So, until next year, I'm just gonna keep pretending it's still October.